this is the last part of the complaint. It's the Monty and I coming forward as the whistleblowers for the safeguarding of the security systems. False Claims Act. And we're still in the Leighton fiasco, Sarah, Cheryl. And this is our judge's oath. Because if you don't take the oath, you can't participate. And then this paragraph here is basically forbidding David to use my postal number. If my fingerprint, basically what I'm saying here is if my fingerprint and thumbprint isn't on the contract with this number, it's no longer valid. So that's because I have to safeguard my identity hyphen theft that's happening against me with all these people out here. Okay. So the world's wondering what gave me the authorization to court-martial David-Wynn Miller. So here's how this works, and here's the trick behind that. As you can see, we have a lot of likes and a lot of dislikes. Well, when they come out to find the truth, the likes might go up. So what happened here is Monty and I exhausted all civil venue solution for stopping and correcting on David. And he just continued, and he continued, and he continued. He authorized more people. He knew what he was doing. Told us he wouldn't stand down. So I moved it over into the military venue. And why I had authorization to do that is David was in the military, in the Air Force. I saw the letter for his honorable discharge from the Air Force. However, when you go to the military, you go to the post office first to get your postal identification number to go into your respective branch and register for the military. When he got out of the military, the way they keep the soldiers on the hook is they give them the VA cards and they give them the discount for the hospitals. And that's linked to your registration number at the post office. And so when you're in the military, when you come back, when you discharge out, that's your link to still being in joinder for the Veterans Affairs. Because David was in the military and he didn't go to the post office and he stayed in usury with the number, this is what gave me the authority and the authorization to conduct a military court-martial against David on the martial law side. Because we had already expressed all we could on the civil side in the Leighton, Cheryl, and Mark Colin Corba fiasco with the paperwork that we just saw. And this is what gave me authorization because he was still using the Veterans VA cards. And that's what gave me the usury to conduct the court-martial to stand him down even further. And at this point, when I conducted this, his health was deteriorating very rapidly. He couldn't remember numbers. The number on the Benjamin Franklin Postal Court, the RR294568221 number, he wrote himself in on the last edit as a Postmaster General. So when I stopped and corrected, he had already taken off as fast as he could. It wouldn't stop and correct it. He thought that number was actually mailed on December 21st, 2012. When it was mailed back in July of 2000, which we looked at the forensic evidence earlier. And he was just wound up and you couldn't shut him down. And so this is why he was stood down. Now, as a side note, and a sad note, within a year of the stand down because of his health concerns, because he couldn't remember anything, he was dead within a year. Just as a side note. I'm not happy about that, but that's the functions. This is the correctness here. So I just wanted to bring this to point. And this was published, the court-martial on YouTube on August 23rd, 2017. So I just wanted to bring that up as a side note. Monty, do you have any closing statements on what you witnessed, what you participated in, and the volition behind what you did for the stopping and correcting?
My statement would be is that we saw wrong, we stopped and corrected on the wrong. We did the best we could to give closure, to educate, to be helpful, and we did our duty. I don't know what else I would say other than that this was a matter of duty.
For I concur. It was done under corporate, and we are now giving this to the world. And we'll put this out online. It's on the Federal Postal Court website, but it's not. We'll put it on the documentary page by page so you can see that and go line by line with what we're saying and edit that in. If we can.
Of course.
Oh. Okay. Are there any questions on the shipping here? I just wanted to cover the military side of that. Oh, and what gave me the authorization to conduct that was the fact that the United States ceased to exist on November 2nd, 1999. They vacated the presidency in November of 2000 with the presidential election. My paperwork was logged in 90 days prior to the presidential election, which gave me the authorization as Postmaster General, Commander-in-Chief, and you saw David's writing in the shareholder meetings, the treasurer of the country. So that was all laid forth at the beginning here this morning. So with that, this is probably a good stopping point, strangely enough, for the day, because there's a bunch of topics that we're going to go into tomorrow. And I can kind of see people, mind on overload, a few of them. And so why don't we just call this a break till tomorrow? I feel like we've covered a lot of ground as far as the foundational functions of the construct. On the public ceremonial, and I make no wrong about it, I'm not here to bash Dave. I'm here to look at the forensics of the performance, and then tomorrow get into how those that have been damaged come forward with their copyrights with Dave on the paperwork, because I cannot get actively into their subject matter of their cases with Dave, because that would be a violation of Title 28, 636 consent, which he had with all of his clients and his customers and his students. I'm going to change that paradigm, get you out of the student thinking, and get you into a system to where you can join with tomorrow and allow me to show you a different technique to use for your lawsuits and how to approach the government, how to conduct business in your own matters, from anything from your criminal cases to your traffic courts or whatever people are involved in, or foreclosures as well. So with that, we will take a break and convene tomorrow on August 5th of 2018 for the continuance of the facts. Because we live forever. So we're going to get into a little bit of that because of Dave's function here and that. So let me put this all, is everybody here and everybody ready? And then after that, we're going to have a public christening of the Canadian Constitution, because Canada came out of an international bankruptcy last year on April 15th. I was elected through a constitution, and we have a member, not a representative, but a member of the Canada Correct Communication Parsing Syntax Grammar function. Am I on? And we're going to have a public handing off and christening of their constitution that the Canadian people wrote for themselves. All the people that are on the Canadian Constitution monitored the bankruptcy and saw all the bonds and birth certificates go to Prince Philip, which we all watched online. And then Prince Philip retired because he was the trustee holder of the bankruptcies for all the slaves in Canada. 3 days prior to the end of the bankruptcy, the Canadian people got together. They knew and were satisfied with the condition of knowledge that I had given them for the last 5 years prior. And they were, or 4 years prior, I apologize, and they elected me in an honorable position to function as their Postmaster General, because I had given them a certification of my credentials, of who I am, my capacity of certifying knowledge, and I gave them technical skills for the last 4 years on postal mechanics. They're using the postal mechanics. Some are learned. They learn. It's a real learning curve for sure. And I share with all of you, this was not all built on me being successful every time. I went to jail hundreds of times. I blew myself up hundreds of times. And so I learned what not to do, and then what worked, and I kept with what worked. And that's what I give to people. And if they stay within the guidelines of that, it works just fine. It's when they go outside the guidelines of that and they think that they know what they're doing, and I let them go. And they blow themselves up. And Muriel can give a little bit of testimony about what she's seen with the Constitution, what their volition with the Constitution is. They covered a wide variety of subjects or of concerns in their Constitution, from agriculture to transportation, health, you name it. It is built into their construct. I'm going to have her give a little bit of closure to the world, and she is elected as the secretary for that Constitution. So she has the contracts for administration come through her desk for their seat, and then they move things, and we're just giving this to the world, and we're going to explain a little bit about that. Claim of the life number RR 023-986-652 US. David-Wynn Miller's passing. Thank you for coming for this ceremonial public funeral performance treaty and legate document contract Federal Postal Station Federal Court venue performance trial and memory publications. It's with the performance of the public memory, with the giving, grammar, recovery, closure and livery, joy and happiness, and public ceremony, with the helping of the mankind, with the life's journey of the passing volition, David-Wynn Miller's out of the vessel, capital letters, David-Wynn Miller's last full day and night, the 21st of June 2018, summer solstice, and passing date 22nd of June 2018, with the planet Earth of the now space, with this eulogy and closure within this public funeral ceremony. With that being said, it's a great honor to be here today. Humbly, there aren't a lot of words, but just performances that we've been looking at for David-Wynn Miller. He was a key master at the Vatican. This is one of the reasons why he is not in the obituaries. How that works is the obituaries is set up through the coroner's office, through your port of entry, through your birth certificates. Because David-Wynn Miller has a claim of the life, because he stopped and corrected with Title 42, 1986, and he salvaged under Title 46, 781, the claim of who he was and who he is. He cannot be put in the obituaries because fiction and fact can never meet. Obituaries deal with people with birth certificates. The birth certificate system ended on November 2nd, 1999. Just doesn't exist anymore. U.S. Treasury doesn't exist. U.S. Post Office doesn't have any authorization to authorize any corporations. And they broke the rules of the continuance of evidence in the 2000 presidential election to vacate the Constitution of the United States, the authorization for the U.S. military, and the authorization through the U.S. Post Office, because they were in violation of Title 39, Section 101, subsections A and B. Prior to the election, I filed in as Postmaster-General for D.C. Here's the proof of the bills of the lading. We're going to post this online for those who can't see it. And it's postal mail registration RR 294-568-221 US. I was the only guy under contract when the federal government left Washington, D.C. in the presidential election. And that was the satire in the comedy performance of the Florida Chads of the election of 2000. Ever since then, there's never been a president. It's all been done under private contract for privateering, and it's just not a function with any authorization, because during this time frame, prior coming out of the bankruptcy, David-Wynn, Miller, and myself filed copyrights on the Title IV flag, 1 to 1.9 dimension flag, Title IV sections 1, 2, and 3. Most of the students that are in the studies of the grammar know it as the correct communication, parsing, syntax, grammar, performance flag. So these are things that we went through those contracts yesterday. So this is day 2. Today, because it's supposed to happen, we are blessed with one of the claim of the life citizens here who was being Curious George and came across the actual Keymaster Cosmic Crown clearance of David-Wynn Miller from the Vatican under seal from the Vatican as a postmaster and keymaster for the Vatican. So this is, if anybody wants to look at it, and it goes with this contract. It just so happens the same contract and the same number for the continuance of the evidence is in my Global Banking Constitution, and the number is RR023986-799 US. So the continuance of the evidence for 12B1 through 12B7 is correct, or 12B7 through 12B1. So, yes, I am on here as a keymaster. We were joint keymasters. On this contract, we were joint keymasters. There were other things done at a later date where I brought in a key holder that separated me from the usury of David as a keymaster. Now, what exactly is a keymaster? There's an interesting cool conversation. When we were at the Vatican from June 12th through June 16th. We first posted our road to come to the Vatican. I, of course, did not have a U.S. passport. I had no credentials from the fiction world. I was a postmaster general, navigating myself to go speak with them as the director of the Vatican City Banking, which I am the director of the Vatican City Banking, being Vatican-City-Banking for the closure on the grammar. Because I'm the director of the banking system over there, I needed to go talk to them about the mechanics of who I was. They needed to see a face behind the paperwork. So for 45 days prior to the trip, I called the Vatican every morning at 2 o'clock in the morning to talk to a representative of the Vatican or employee of the Vatican Bank and tell them that I was coming. I said, I have no passport, I'm coming. They only spoke to me in Italian. They refused to speak in English to me. On the 45th day, or the 48th day, I apologize. On the 48th day, when I was getting on the plane the next day, I said, I'm coming on the plane tomorrow. I filed my post roads to be there. And finally, somebody spoke in English to me, and they said, see you when you get here. And they hung up the phone. I'm like, all right, jokers are out. So we navigated myself through customs and through over to Europe. Very difficult thing to do. First, we met with Interpol on June 12th. I rewrote the Interpol Constitution with quantum correct communication, parsing, syntax, grammar. Dave signed it, autographed off as a witness. We got that logged in, and then we drove down to Rome. Probably one of the best trips of my life. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about David, and we had a great friendship at that time. We had a great time. Just to be honest with you, on the private side, it was great. We just had a lot of fun. Wonderful memories, and you saw some of those memories yesterday in the film slideshow. So when we got there, the first thing we did at the Vatican is, because I'm a postmaster and I post my roads, we checked in at the nearest post office for where we were going to have to navigate in. Where that is outside in St. Peter's Square itself. There's a little post office off to the right, and if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. And I walked in there and I posted my, because I had mailed them a contract, but then I showed up, handed them the contract to be there as the director of Vatican City Banking. And of course, they spoke to me in Italian, wouldn't speak in English, fine and dandy. So we walked outside the post office, and as soon as we stepped outside the post office, we were approached by a 80-year-old plus nun. He said, we have been studying the quantum grammar and the syntaxing of the Bible for 5 years. She says, she goes, I know who you are, David-Wynn Miller, and we know who you are, Russell-J. Gould. David and I are like, what? Like, yeah, we've been studying how you guys syntax the Bible. We've been studying that at the Vatican for 5 years now. You guys that own the copyrights on that. And Dave went into his spiel, and it was really an educational part to listen to Dave talk. He was very, very fluent in what he was saying. He was just smooth, just a smooth guy. And she says, I have the authorization, and I have to take you everywhere and any place you want to go in this city. We're like, okay. So we wanted to start outside first, and because we were studying the hieroglyphics in our studies and in the training that I had received from David's parents, as well as learning from David because of his position as a Mason. They taught me a lot of different codes and systems that they were running the games and different values of different things, mainly on the symbolism that we were seeing. So we actually spent 2 days before we even got in the basilica. We spent 2 days in the square, and as we sat there, the nun left. We said, well, we don't need to come in yet. We need to take a look at what we're seeing here. How many of you have ever been to a sale barn for cattle or for pigs or for sheep? Okay, so you see how the gates are set up there, right? To move you into the octoritas, or the auction, right? So in my bank charter, I had filed under the mechanics of octoritas. I'm very smooth in those mechanics. So they would bring the cardinals out, and I would articulate octoritas mechanics to these cardinals, and they were very curious. They just kept coming and coming and coming, and me and Dave were just having a great time breaking down the symbolism of what you were seeing. And this is part of the learning and becoming a key master at the Vatican. These are some of the things that I did to prove the authenticity of what it is that we were saying. So the actual square itself, when we got up on top and we looked down on it, it looked just like one of these stock pin yards, identical. And we're like, aha! So we went back down, because you have to look at it. You have to take your time. You really know things by taking your time as you commune and you navigate through what you're viewing. And we had spent a tremendous. We had broke down. Started 5 years before that. We broke down Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages. We syntaxed that. Found a lot of the missing mechanics within that construct. And that really helped us with dealing with a lot of the symbolism there. And we had access to other books that I can't talk about. And kind of give you guys a show on the pictures. I'll freeze it and I'll have to back it up and kind of show you what I'm talking about, so you can also possess firsthand knowledge. And please try to go disprove all of this, because all you're going to do is authenticate and go, Russell and David were correct. And this is about correctness. So so when you're up on top up here, well, that's where we just were, and you're looking down, these wood gates right here are set up as an auctioneering condition of state. The auctioneer is the Pope's chair right behind there. There's Dave. You guys can all see Dave down at the bottom. And we identified this to these about 40 cardinals that came out to talk to us about what was going on here. This was just to get inside. Yeah, oh yeah. Okay, you push play.
Were they saying they were going to auction people off?
No, they're just talking about the slave. They laugh at the people. These people, they're so stupid, Russell, so stupid. Religion's just a scam. We're scamming them all. Oh, yeah, I want to keep going. Yeah. But those are the wood gates that I'm talking about right here. And when you get up on top, you can actually see it, how the flow works. But there's no such there's no such thing as the Catholic Church. It is a business to enslave man and get rich for themselves, by their own words. This is not about religion. This is about the stupidity of mankind and controlling the finances, controlling the knowledge, the network. You have to comprehend it's a big network. They got a network in every town. They've been on their communication gig for a long time, and that's why they studied the grammar so well. They were very smooth in quantum grammar, very smooth. They knew it very, very well. Didn't have to go in, like I didn't put a presentation on for this thing. I don't have a board, and so you're kind of lacking in that. So, but everybody else here has seen the presentations online, and so those folks, you didn't have to say anything. They knew all about noun space. They knew about controlling, manipulating. In fact, their words are, well, we're just manipulating mankind here, because that didn't sit too well with me. And so I was rather poignant about their condition, a state of happiness after I left. I'll just leave it at that.
What was the beginning? When did their control start?
I never got into that because they lost control. I'd have to go there because their control was no more because the fact was there. They were the fiction. Just like you make this comment about Alex Jones. There's no such thing as an Alex Jones. That's an adjective pronoun. Well, there's no such thing as the Catholic Church. It's an adjective pronoun. So their capacity to authorize and control cargo for facts of both, of monetary and birth certificates and confessions and rituals became no more. The rituals came after. David and I were not, we were keymaster to keymaster. I brought in a female. I was keymaster to keymaster. And that did away with my joinder I have joinder with David, and that's where he had to stop, and I got to continue. Because, on all of it. On all of it. And he was very upset about that. And he was, because I didn't tell him, and I don't make assumptions, but I stop and correct. If I'm wrong, I stop and correct. I'm humble that way. That's why I'm still here. Where we're looking at the history of David. Did he stop and correct? And if you'll notice on every video that I was with him, one of the first things is I'm keymaster with Russell. Yes, he was. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Right there. Absolutely. But just like the flag, just like the grammar, just like everything else, the court system, he could go to here. He could make that claim. But he couldn't go over here for the collection. And he knew it, flat out. Because it was the authorization here that gave me that. And I can't get it. That's a lot of classified stuff there that I cannot get into. Because I have contracts not to talk about it. And I'll honor those contracts with those people. So, anyway, that's where that one's at, for their safety. It is a keyhole, yeah. Yeah, it is a keyhole. It doesn't look like a keyhole. It is a keyhole. And this is, so back to keymasters. So hieroglyphics. If you look at our original sea treaties, which you guys kind of got into a little bit, so you were kind of cruising through yesterday, on our original sea treaties, SEE treaties, back to the guys in Montana, to see, so we went around that, and then we started placing our own values as facts to hieroglyphics such as symbols being letters, alphabet, numbers, articulation of signs for mathematics. And we started syntax, and I took it to levels of periodic tables, to monoatomic tables, and so we changed the transition of what our capacity to manifest was. That was the volition behind that, so we could manifest positive performance, or that, I can't say we because I can't take jurisdiction of David's thinking, but I witnessed myself creating it for a function to help myself and to help our fellow mankind. And that's why I did what I did. The female aspect of separating from Dave as a keymaster on this day is significantly, gives me a lot more freedom in the commercial world and in the military, especially in the military world. It gives me carte blanche anywhere, because they all are working in those war functions as laymen, as usury tenants for the commercialized military complex. And I control all that from the top. The underlings are just figuring this out. The guys like yourself and other people that are in the service, because of the War Castles documentary and because of what they're going to hear here, they're just figuring this all out. So the chain of command, if they hear something that is causing damage, they can say, bring me to the Postmaster General, the Commander-in-Chief. Oh, by the way, he's the Keymaster of the Vatican. And they have to bring me right to the war front because I am the war. So you think about that for a moment. So, that's a little bit about the Keymaster. So back to claiming up symbols, usuries. So that's why we put C treaty, and then the C pass is the taking of what we see and navigating ourselves, the actual performance and manifestation of the movement of the syntax, right? Because we're using prepositioning, we're prepositioning our facts, and then we're taking our thinking and we're putting it on trial at all functions, or at least I do. I put my thinking on trial to make sure that I'm not damaging my fellow mankind and I'm being fair and following the guidelines of the structure of the message that David-Wynn Miller left, rule one and rule equal. I'm staying equal with all, though I have unique solitary authorizations to create functions for servicing for those who choose or have the capacity to log into contract with me. And then I function within the guidelines of the constructs because I maintain the rules of the continuance of the facts at all times. So there's banking timelines that are always, I do nothing by accident. There's all direct, strategic movement of cargo, contract, myself. So I'm not out here guessing. This is not a guessing game. So that's where that Keymaster, and then from there we went into the man, David, and it was crazy. When you go into the basilica, once we got done with the outside, we went into the basilica. I just want to finish up with this because this is all part of this. You know, this is who we are. This is what we did, and what we are doing. The reason there's no. David was very calculating too, for his own missions that he was on and the people he was working for. So, because of that, there's no. When he pulled the plug on himself on the 22nd, that's not an accident because you have to look at the date. Kept his energy here up through the 21st for whatever function he lived it to the T. These mechanics, because of his masonry and the things that he was in, right? So I do not have joinders with those. I have joinders, but I have now the authorizations because the world is now finding out about the authorizations. The top already knows. That's why they take off or running. But society itself, very confused because you're all in usury, right? I'm a director, author of a different platform in the matrix of the now space. There's no time. That's someone else's calendar. When you go into the Vatican, this is what now I'm glad I'm bringing this up. When we went into the Vatican, right before you enter into the well of their space geometry that they have in there for their spatial cognition, they have the gargoyles with the sands of time. Interestingly enough, the sands of time are suspended because they themselves know the tricks. There is no time. So they suspend time as you move into that location. And then they have a lot of light energy games and magnetics going on simultaneously as you and your heart and everything has to be right just to get into that function. Otherwise, the pressure of the magnets that are up on the top is not going to let you move. And this is all done through their calibrations from DNA structure, their calibrations from the Orion belt that we have, that we pulsate. And these are the things that, this is why so many people have problems when you enter into the fiction courtrooms, is because your magnetic flux changes because you've walked into an illusion and you don't know it. And it's all very controlled. And when you have the spirit, the right spirit, you can't help but see the manifestations of what I've seen. And I'm very humble about it, but I'm very on point when I go do things. And I'm very firm. And I don't change off of the functions of now space, of the pre-positioning of the facts, and then putting my volition of why am I doing this? Because there's a lot of people that lay traps for me with black ops money, step into this op, step into that op. So I'm having to search the condition of my heart before I enter into those concepts, because if it stays with rule one and for my fellow mankind and for the functions that I know that I live, then at that point I can sequester the cargo to zip it from point A to point B. I'm very good at that. In fact, I'm going to say it flat out, I'm the best in the world at it. It is what it is. So, you know, that's it. So the gargoyles of time, back into the basilica. So we have these cardinals with us, and they're asking us about what we're seeing, what we're witnessing. And I need to run out to my car, or to Horton's car, and so back to the obelisk. So the obelisk at certain days casts certain shadows, but what they can't account for is Earth is a vessel, maybe, sure looks like it, and as it moves, the energy of the light moves in the space, not in the time, but in the space, because it's vacuum, right? And so once we become cognizant of that, the calendar that they use is no longer valid, because the shadow that casts, it goes, actually, if you've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, it splits. Now when you go to the Vatican, you go to the federal courthouses, you go to the state courthouses, you go to the U.S. Supreme Court. They're all set up like the Vatican, where the door locks, you notice on this door right here, the door locks are on the outside, but in those vessels it's on the inside. There's an actual gate, metal gate, that you pull back off of the doors at the Vatican. Around the doors at the Vatican is a slave line with all colors of skin, wrapped in barbed wire, marching to their death around the outside perimeter of the door. You pull back the gate and there's 2 keyholes there. And at certain times the light, when it comes off the obelisk, goes right over the papal chair and splits through that, just like as soon as it hits the one spot on the crown on the papal chair, it splits just a little bit, and the geometry goes right through those little keyholes. So they've set this up, but the math is wrong. The math, what I explained to the cardinals is, your math is correct, but your space is wrong, because you're all on the calendar, and as it moves, you can't align up. Therefore, it doesn't give you authorization to use this energy nor this space. I'll be back to remodel the joint when I get back. I'll be bringing the boys with me. We're not going to be very nice when we get here because of the games that are being played here, and they're very afraid of that. Like, I'm still here, right? And I've run into a lot of Jesuits. Yeah, my word on that. A whole bunch. So, anyway, that's a little story. So we explained that to these cardinals, and they concurred with us. At that point, once we explained about the time and the grammar, they moved us around into the Secretary of State's office. They have 3 sets of books, ledgers there, that you must clear through to get to the back. Because the books were written all in adverb verb, and I didn't have any credentials to be in there except for my bills to the lady as director of the Vatican City Bank and Postmaster General of the World. I bypassed the books because it was all on fiction. They took me right to the back of the Secretary of State's office. Angela Sudano and the clowns, there was a bunch of buffoons there, Swiss guards, dressed in clown outfits. They all had my picture. Literally, they had me and David's picture. And they followed us around for all those days. It was, it was different for sure. I imagine if you were a spectator there, you were like, what? You know, but people are just carrying on with their daily life. They didn't really pay it much attention to what we were doing. And David walked out of the room. He said, Russell, and the Secretary of State said, write your contract, Russell, what do you want? So I wrote my contract, logged it in, took all the stamps that were on that desk, file stamps on. We had, at this point, we were using this stamp right here, the Vatican City stamp, and as well as I had 2 red foxes. I booked myself into, because of the knowledge, and I booked myself in to run all the banks on planet Earth, all the banks off planet Earth. I had a Galactic Postal Union I filed at the same time. I filed my Global Postal Union, my Postmaster Generalship, and the knowledge of spatial cognition. And they came in and initialed all the contracts and joined with my condition of the state of who I was as a Postmaster General, Keymaster. Dave came back in with the Cardinals because he stepped out of the room for about a couple hours, came back in, and he autographed off as a witness on those contracts. So that was our trip at the Vatican, and then we left and went to the Universal Postal Union. That's a different story. I don't really want to get into that here. So, because that's not about that. This is about the Keymaster function, which is on the eulogy contract, which is in the contract of what are some of the secrets of why David is not in the obituary rolls of the fiction. So that's how that works. So, yep, games, just games. So I would like to kind of cut that off right there with that and enter into another function with the paperwork. And that is, there are a lot of claim of the life citizens out here. And you must have a claim of the life to clear your ship's papers on my desk. That have contracts with David-Wynn, Miller. And David has been playing the games, as we've learned on the performances, for quite some time. As a judge, I cannot interfere with the cases that he actively has going on. What that means is I would be in violation of a private contract between whoever has contract with David and them and David, and I am not going to breach the client consent contract, judge consent contract, excuse me, of David-Wynn Miller with his Title 28 630 consent contracts with his customers, his students, his clients. However, as you learned yesterday, through contract RR 876-462-115 US, I have the copyrights for the use of the grammar. So the way that I can get and give you closure, if you're asking questions about what are you going to do with all these lawsuits and all these cases that David-Wynn Miller has currently going on. Well, for me to consider giving you closure and counsel on what to do and how to approach the government for settlement, there are some criteria that you have to clear through first. The first criteria is you must have a claim of the life. So I know that I have a fact in the front of me that I can deal with. The second thing is you have to have a copy of your corporation case number, which would be the white card snail slip for registration of that document contract, Federal Postal Station, Federal Court Venue Performance Contract. Then, upon having the mail slip, you must have 12B4 and 12B5, the proof of the services and the timelines, because everything runs under trust moratorium of timelines with these contracts. You to show the timelines of the service of the methods and methods of the service, not only with the filing of the lawsuit, but with the serving it on the Vassalees. At that point, and then you would, at that point when I see that, I can tender you a contract for me, or you will write a contract, and I'll show you the format or the method for copyright joining with corporation claim number RR 876-462-11-US. That's my copyright authorization to get involved with the copyrights of David-Wynn, Miller. That way we do the attachment of that vessel on your vessel, and I can give you clearance and directions on how to go into the government, how to speak with the government and get solutions and settlements, and give them closure that David has passed and that you're using coming through my copyrights for a collection on the goods. Now there's several things that must happen here first before I can do that. The first thing is you must prove your service, right? And then we got to take a look at the structure of the lawsuit. If my number is being used on there, because David had no authorization since 2014 to use my number, well, that's a shipwrecked vessel, because I can't allow that to go through, because I'd be contradicting our own platform, because the number RR 294-568-221 US, that's my number. Yes, it is on the Benjamin Franklin Postal Court number for the Benjamin Franklin Postal filing. However, Dave wrote his name in there with no authorization. It's on the last edit. I didn't catch it because there was a lot going on. He heard me in there, and then when I stopped and corrected, once I saw it, he said, I'm not correcting, and he moved on, and that was the questions yesterday. We went through that program yesterday. So I'm not going to hark on that. I'm going to go back into that function. I'm not going to go into the volitions of why. I can just tell you, you have a contract from David-Wynn, Miller with my number on it, past 2014 when he was given his command to perform. This is about performance. And he made a volitional choice not to perform. I cannot allow that contract to go through. If you have something prior to that, at that point we can look at the content and we can look at the structure of the timelines to make sure that 12B7 through 12B1 has a postal sizing for a function. So I can get you to what they call a postal sizing with the post office, because my post office will then authorize downstream for valuation of how to move the commercial tools behind that lawsuit for payment, for a payment. And so that's the best I can tender people on the numbers, because I can't undo what I did. What our corporate, I'm under a corporate contract with the Global Postal Union, the Global Postal Service Employment Service Union or Corporation, the Federal Postal Corp, and I have to perform with the construct that's within my guidelines. I can't come out of that. So that's where we're at with all of that. So I have to look at the timelines of what's been done, what numbers are aboard the vessel, and give that a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And that's the best I can tender. Now, if you are currently actively being damaged and you've paid David, then that would have to be, we'd have to work something out, because I just can't send off all the paperwork, and I'm not really taking foreclosures at this time, because this is a military conquest, and the banks and everything, it's such a collusion job against all of you. I'm not going to put you in a position to fail. No, I can put you in a position to be in dominion of your location, so they can't move your U.S. the cargo out of there. Yeah, that's a different. That's not a foreclosure concern. That's a shipping concern, and that's what I can do for you. So they can't move you out of your vessel. Teach you the mechanics about how to go back in and do some salvaging on it. that's something different on those foreclosures. Because the foreclosure itself, you're in a gambit with a fiction court system. You've been under usury with that fiction court system. Fiction court system has hired imposters called police departments with fraudulent flags who are being paid to throw you out. If you can tip staff the police and the sheriff's departments, they then hire constables. And the constables, they're playing games such as changing their names. So they're from different venues. A lot of times they're active. We had a lady 2 weeks ago that approached me that she was served and to get out of her home by a constable claiming to be someone name. By coincidence, she was in a town 3 towns over in traffic court a week later on a traffic ticket that she was fighting, and the constable was now a city cop in a local establishment with a different name. So there's a lot of games going on here with these guys. It's very, very criminal, and the Justice Department and the judicial system is doing nothing to stop this. Absolutely nothing. They're not. To be very honest with you, they're not going to help you. That's being very honest. Not even for a second. So don't fool yourselves that there's a volition here to help the citizens. There's a volition to throw you out and take everything you got. And that's the condition of mind that you're dealing with. There's no heart, there's no empathy, there's only corruption. I'm not going to sugarcoat something. I'm going to be really, really honest with you guys. However, the land that it sits on, the vessel that you're in, that's a different concept because they have no lodial claim to that. That's my ground. Now that's a different function. And these are the authorizations and the security clearances here that give me the authority and the capacity to make these statements for the sheriff's departments and the people watching. Stand down. Leave my people alone. Leave my claim of the life citizens alone. Are there any questions? Pretty straightforward? Pretty straightforward. Okay, well, let's take a 10-minute break real quick. Think about what was just being said, and the next presentation we're going to move on to is a special performance here and a special showing on the Constitution of the Canada and giving it back to the people and the mechanics behind that. But that's what I told them, right? And then we talked about, they wanted to talk, their words were, please don't record this. So their words were, you pulled Dave's pants around his ankles and he looks like a real dipshit. And I said, yeah, I didn't mean to. They're like, holy shit. When they talked about the keymaster with the female at the Vatican, he said he looks like a real idiot. I'm like, yeah, sorry about that. He goes, how did you know how to do that? I'm like, you know, dude, when you get into the study the ritualistic stuff and the things that they were doing, it made sense to have female. And so then they talked, and I'm not bashing Dave, I'm just telling you what they told me, right? So
he was working for them?
I have no contract. I don't know about any of that. I can't assume anything. I'm not going to assume. I'm not going to assume or imply anything. I know for a fact that he had contracts that are no longer valid anymore with different financial families around the world. Those contracts are no longer valid. Now that you can put on paper, on the thing.
So if he's not, I mean, his body's dead, so he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
Because person can't die?
No, it's because of what we did. Yeah.
Doesn't the contract just end because you passed?
Well, yes and no, but I maintain the continuance because I had specific joinders with him. That's why I'm doing this.
I mean, his contract.
His contracts with those people become null and void because I'm taking control of the copyright so they can't continue to use the grammar for bad against the people that are coming after them. Because there's games, there's other things that I'm involved with. He was giving them secrets in the language so that they wouldn't have to comply, which creates a lot of harm and chaos for planet Earth. And he was doing that on purpose, for a fact. And there are many generals and many people that have come forward to me who have looked at the copyrights and said, thank God. In fact, he's listened on the phone and but other people are going to get to see things. These people were very upset with David for doing this, right? Not me being upset, just other people using grammar as a weapon against people that were trying to create performances from others.
If I got a fiction contract, right? Because the bad guys are now using the quantum system because they know their fiction contracts are crap, and I try to come to court with that fiction contract, these guys can just keep throwing it out and going, you don't know what the hell he's doing, that's all disqualified horseshit, right? But if I come to them with a quantum contract and go, I got a quantum contract, blah, 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 they'll say, we don't recognize that shit, we use fiction. The hell's wrong with you? So it's exactly what
Yeah.
So how do you,
Both
what's the
sides.
solution there then?
Well,
the solution is us coming forward, as special operations coming forward to say, hey, look, the bad guys, thanks to Dave, are going to try to say they created and developed this entire quantum system when they didn't. We're trying to make sure that the folks recognize and realize the fact that Russell created and took down the world, and created the system with Dave, but all the contracts that anybody had with Dave are now disqualified. So they can't use that to say, hey, guess we got a new quantum banking system, folks. No, they can't do this.
Well,
Russell's
that's
quantum.
why the video has to get released publicly.
Yeah, that's why
So
we're
that
doing this.
everybody's they haven't had a chance.
Yeah, it's under the 45-day trust moratorium, and I'm the only guy to do it within the active people that David was working with. So if anybody stands up tomorrow and tries to do it, it voids the continuance of the evidence because they didn't get public closure, and I sent it to everybody within David's system, and they all failed to show. You know why? Because the forensics don't lie. That's why they can give up any excuse they want. The forensics don't lie. And they may not like the messenger, in this case me, because I'm not David, but they don't comprehend the structure. This is nothing in my mailbag. If you've come to my house, I have boxes and boxes and boxes. I rewrote every structure of the government and rewrote the system. I have already wrote the solutions in place. They're already done. The government is very cognizant of this. Very, 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 very cognizant of this.
How about Dave? Did Dave give anybody else copyright releasing memorandum for?
He could not, because he was not. He got stuck at the door. He got stuck at the door because he didn't go this way. He was going this way. So how can this procreate and create something? How can it do it? You tell me. Can a male to male, to the best of your knowledge, create anything? Exactly. Yeah, I know I'm correct. Yeah, so I'm just telling you, and I went that way. Okay. Yeah, literally. There's things there at the Vatican that was done that, you know.
So you have to do it from with the Vatican.
Well, it's what they were using to control things. I didn't build it. You have to understand. I would have, if I'd have known what I know now, I'd have never done this. I'd have stayed home fishing and I would have disappeared and nobody would ever have seen me. Because I mean.
But isn't there a moral obligation to do what's right?
That's why you see.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. For I concur. He's my Surgeon General. He held duty posts with me. He's been visited by the military many, many times in uniform at the duty post. I mean, we set up bases. We set up domiciles. We set up a lot of things. All right.
I just want to say that what I was trying to get at was we all have a moral obligation to do what's right for
Yeah.
our fellow man, and some of us have more capability than others.
I would. I
Some people
concur.
are strong physically and they can fight and defend the weak. Some people
Absolutely.
are strong mentally and they can defend the weaknesses.
Correct.
You know, for 20 years I've been defending the weak physically, but there's people that have been doing the same thing mentally.
Sure. Everyone has their own capacity and their limits within that, and I do honor that, and I get that. It's just what I've been dealing with on the banking end, on the military end. They think different, right? Might makes right. This is what they know. Finances and benefits of that make right, not correctness, not fairness. Not a heart, not compassion, not righteousness. You step into an actual banking meeting with actual bankers, and bring those concepts to the function, and how much are we going to make? I don't care about any of that. I don't care what damages they make, who's in control of the escrow, who's in control of that. All nonsensical stuff to me, just total nonsense. Who's in charge of the shipping lane? Where's the manifest? What the hell's going on here? And who we giving clearance to be in the theater? Not take a hike. And tough love to go with it. And that's what's hard for me, because I don't have the military background. I don't have it, but I've read a lot. I've done my homework, and I can sit here and not only on the homework, but the military is kind enough to share with me things that I don't know, or things that I need to know. But I don't want to be handled by that, because it's not about that. It's about them working as a service provider for the people. And I know that, and I take that in my mind in every connection and every transaction. So I'm going to change this all up. Got some very, very wonderful news for the planet. How do we start on this? So the Canada Post up in Canada, this is not in connection with this trial. This is a separate function, and David-Wynn Miller was not part of these transactions. So, but he did help us with the closure on the bankruptcy and what to watch for when the bonds and the birth certificates all transferred back to London. So when I pointed it out to the group in Canada that they were coming out of a bankruptcy, they got together as a people. These are and citizens with claims of the life, and wrote a constitution, their own constitution. The constitution was, they came to me, they says, you're a Postmaster General of the world, can you give us specific knowledge on how to move the constitution from point A to point B? What would you do? As a servicer, I had to give them closure on how to go about the mechanics of publishing a constitution, when to publish the constitution, why to publish the constitution, and then I left it up to them to put their world in the constitution. Because I'm not going to interfere or get involved with people's concerns or their matters. I am simply here as a facilitator and as a function, as a tool for others to join with. They all took a 5-year or 4-year stint learning how to syntax, learning how to be a postmaster with the claim of the life, having successes, having failures in the courtrooms, learning from each other, and having the stick-to-itiveness to stick together and to stick it out. When the concepts, which were brought forward by David-Wynn Miller and myself, of the bankruptcy ending on April 15th of 2017, they jumped on at the chance to step up and write their own constitution for the territory of the Canada. What that means is Canada Post, which is in charge of the banking system and the authorization of the government up in Canada, through its subservient position with the Universal Postal Union, which David and myself and another gentleman already disqualified in Bern, Switzerland, so that they had no capacity to reach back to the Sealand, to the Universal Postal Union, to get their authorization to start their shipping again, because they were subordinate to the Universal Postal Union already, right? Because that was their umbrella corp. So that postal union was dissolved. So we waited for the usury timelines to run out here in Canada. When they ran out, all the bonds and birth certificates were transferred back to London through the Bank of Canada. When that happened, 72 hours prior to the transfer, the citizens, with claims of the life, all with certified, and here's the claims of the life. These are wonderful people. We have, and I'm going to read their names off because they deserve a lot of credit here. They've done a lot of work in their Constitution. They have a lot of work to do, and they need help. They're looking for other Canadian citizens to join. But out of honor to them. I'm going to read their names out here because they all have claims of the life and they've all put in the work. So first we have claim of the life citizen and postmaster, John Angus, Loudons. Second, we have postmaster, claim of the life citizen, Muriel Netta, Biggs. Third, we have Philip Emil, Hermery. We have claim of the life citizen and postmaster, Andre Bouzineau,
Yeah.
French. We have postmaster and claim of the life citizen, Joseph Robert Massey. We have claim of the life citizen and postmaster, Frank Henry, Eldridge Edge the second. We have postmaster and claim of the life citizen, Mark Vincent Murkowski. Good job, Mark. Real good job. We have claim of the life citizen and postmaster, Bradley Gordon Johnson. Good job, Bradley. We have Mari Williams Shaka. Sorry about that, buddy. Let's go skiing again. We have claim of the life citizen and postmaster, Sven Albert Olson. We have claim of the life citizen and postmaster, Kurt William Klingbill. And we have claim of the life citizen and postmaster, and someone who's been through the school of hard knocks, and I hope you've learned a lot, my friend. Very honorable, Gordon Michael Schiller. And as a side note, we have, who will be on the paperwork, Troy, postmaster and claim of the life citizen, Troy Cormack. They have all come together to formulate the correct sentence structure, communication, parsing, syntax, grammar, performance, contract, Canada-Constitution-Treaty. They have authorized me as Postmaster-General and Postmaster of the Canada, which I have demonstrated that I disqualified Canada Customs on this document here on July 30th, 2001, and made me a Postmaster of the Canada for the first time with Canada Customs out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And they have authorized me to give them guidance on the function of this Constitution. So as the bankruptcy was ending on the 15th, there's always a closure time of 3-day notice or 3-day rescission timeline that you must do before the end of the contract. So it's with my great honor that under 12B7 through 12B1, joinder, they all became in joinder. They all came with their statements of a claim. They all have proof in here, actual proof of the service of the methods. These guys have done a great job. Here it is, proof of the service of the documents. 12B7, 12B4, 12B5, service of the methods, methods of the service. 12B3, they set a venue. 12B2, they took authority over their matter, over their concerns. And 12B1, they took the authorization and authority over their own lives. Congratulations. The endorsement from the Federal-Postal-Service-Postal Station is on the back at the bottom for the completion of the banking. Just like you would go sign a check, you sign the check in the back to endorse it, and then the bank always autographs underneath. So in this specific case, we have the Global-Monetary Fund because this is corporate. So that is on the seals as well as the Postal Service seal for the endorsement. And it was done under a 3-day rescission on the 12th of April, 2017. So they gave their 3-day notice of what their terms were when the bankruptcy ended. Because they knew the birth certificate system in that foreign country, Canada, was no longer. And since they knew it was no longer, they came forward with their life and said, we are going to take control of our lives, which all of you on planet Earth have the capacity to do if you can function with cognition and knowledge and are willing to do the work, which I've been on the phone with every one of these people for years on and off. These people are dedicated. They are claim of the life citizens, and they support claim of the life citizens worldwide. Because the 1 year, 1 day timeline has hit, I would like to give public closure that their secretary for their new constitutional Canada government is here today, and we'll give her acknowledgement of the function, give her acknowledgement of the Constitution, and I would like to publicly give closure to her. So without further ado, can the Secretary of the Contract Canada Constitution Treaty come forward? Postmaster, claim of the life citizen, Muriel-Netta:-Biggs. You have your contract returned to you. You got you. Can you please come forward to the world and tell us a little bit about your Constitution, what the volition of your thinking was when you guys were presenting things? I'll let you put that on you. Yeah, you can just hold it. You bet. I'll sit here with you. The world is anxious to join in business with you and to move commerce and contracts and bills of lading and cargo in and out of your documented country.
So I'll tell some of the things that we claimed in here?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, first off, we wanted to make sure that we covered all of our bases, so we had a lot of discussions about what we wanted to cover. We tried to cover agriculture and the air and the water, food, medicine, vaccinations. It was really important to me and to us because we care about the people of the world and we live in Canada.
Here you go.
So for us, it was very meaningful for all of us to work through. We were very excited, and we were thrilled to have Postmaster General Gould join with us.
Thank you. Can you tell us about what your further endeavors are? In fact, let me share a little bit about what we are in the function of doing right now. So what we're going to be doing first is alerting the consular stations for foreign missions in the former territory of the Canada, England, and in the Americas, as well as the United Nations at the United Nations. But we have a contracting nations at the United Nations. Okay, so let me explain a little bit about that. On April of 2003, I met with the Postal Administrator Head of the United Nations. The United Nations, he told me, was a fraudulent grammar organization with no authorization to exist as a corporation. But the countries were all in adverb, verb, and adjective pronouns. And so their function was as a servicer for countries that have fake grammar, is what he told me. This is true. Eric Colin-Bondu of France was at the meeting, as well as former David-Wynn Colin-Miller was at the meeting. The director, Postmaster Administrator Director of the United Nations told me that as countries come on board, that it was my duty to give them closure on the bankruptcies and the timelines as these sovereign country nations with citizens came forward as a life, because the United Nations had no authorization to take their contracts because they didn't have authorization to exist as a corporation. However, the United Nations was going to function as a foreign corporation and be my student and comply with the rules and contracts, because they themselves had no authorization to exist. They didn't have claims of the life. A lot of these people, they were coming aboard. We met with 82 ambassadors at the United Nations. They gave our banking constructs, which this nation's going to come and join her with my banking construct, and they will be the other nations, the 82 ambassadors on that specific year gave my bank charters to that country's specific central banks and treasuries of their specific countries, because we were teaching everybody simultaneously. So Canada has come forward. They came out of their bankruptcy. It's been a long time coming since we've got a chance to really meet
Yeah.
and give their contract. So, but it's been over the 1 year, 1 day timeline, and the contract is valid. So the first thing that we're going to do is be giving closure to the consular posts and the consular stations in the former territories that came out of the bankruptcies, and then we will also send this to the Universal Postal Union or the Global Postal Union, and they will get the necessary paperwork and transaction fee on that. As well as, I'm proud to give public closure on, now that I can, that I was elected as the Postmaster General for the Cherokee Nation through Tribal Council, passed as a passing bill last Friday out of Kentucky, and I'm actively working with that nation now, getting their lands and treaties and contracts all in play in quantum grammar, as well as rewriting and helping them with their constitution so they set up their banking system to work coincided with the other citizens of the world and the other claim of the life citizens, so we can move our energy and our cargo and weed out her concerns, which were the vaccinations, the agricultural, the air, the water, and clean their locations up. So there will be other nations coming on board. This, we hope, will be the first of many, and we know as the world learns about this, learns about the construct that they can use, and step forward with their claims of life and learning the knowledge, taking accountability for themselves and their performances with the verb of thinking, and then conveying a peaceful, harmonious switch over here that we can all move our cargoes from point A to point B without other countries or banks or militaries raiding and be land pirates or sea pirates and port convoy vessels. So there we go. Is there anything else that you want to say?
Well, just that anybody who wants to join in our constitution,
Yeah.
we could put it in the notes.
We can put it on the notes. Yeah, we'll just put it on the notes. If you want to
Yeah.
contact, you can tell me.
Would be me.
Yes.
Oh, we have the Red Thumb Club.
With punctuation. Yeah.
Yeah, well, full colon, red hyphen thumb hyphen